أي now. But what about if you want to find it in the future? Same idea. They're not going to put a complete chapter for a future word, though that future word will use exactly the same conditions of what you're going to see for that present word. You just find the present word for all the cash flows, then find that future word for it. Straightforward. What we'll cover inshallah today we'll see formulating the alternatives. Then we'll go with the present worth of equal life alternatives of the same life. We'll see why to go only for that equal life. Then a present worth of different life alternatives. We'll start with this to see the different ways we have. We'll continue with it inshallah next lecture. After that, we'll see the future worth analysis. Again, we are not going to spend more than 5 minutes on that. Why? Because it's just part of what we're going to see for those two present worth of equal life or present worth of a different life alternatives. And finally, we'll see that one capitalized cost, which is at the end, present worth, but for a special condition. For a special condition, capitalized cost for a special condition. So that again is a present worth, but for a special condition. That's why we put it as CC, capitalized cost. ما بأحد later on يسألني, you've asked us to find the capitalized cost in which year? The same year at that. Present worth. This is a present worth. Okay. We'll go now for the first section, but before doing that, Sadiq, have you done with it? Sadiq?
بعد نفس الشيء حتى على الايميل دكتور، الظاهر المشكله من عندي.
إنزين لا تطرش أي شيء، بس طرش مسج تيست or anything على التيمز ولا على الايميل.
اوكي.
بدون أي فايل. Okay. Formulating alternatives. What are those alternatives? Why do you call them alternatives? What we are going to formulate here. Remember in chapter 2 and 3, what we are doing there, taking one type of problem, one cash flow diagram to solve, to find annuity or to find the present worth or to find the future worth for it. And here, like having 3 problems in one problem, 4 problems in one problem, i.e. to find the present worth for each type separately, then to compare between them. That's why we call them alternatives. What are those alternatives? Formulating mutually exclusive alternatives. One of the important functions of financial management and engineering is the creation of alternatives. I'll give you an example. If you want to have a contract with one of the telecommunications company, Betelco, STC, same. You are going to take only one contract, one line for your mobile. You are not going to go with 2 different companies. You will select only one. So those 3 alternatives, are alternatives mutually exclusive. Why mutually exclusive? You're going to select one and only one. Each alternative is a stand-alone option. Stand-alone option. I.e. to do calculation just for Betelco, another calculation just for STC, and the third one just for Zain. Concentrate on what I'm going to say now. Involves description and best estimates of the parameters, such as the first cost. What is that first cost? There in chapter 2 and chapter 3, invest this much in year 0 or now. What did that investment actually did the first cost? Maybe it's a purchasing price, development to build something, installation, commissioning, insurance, all that need to be paid at time 0. The word first here doesn't mean year 1. No, it's the first cost that's going to be paid to start the project, which is at time 0. Any coming periods after that will be 1, 2, 3. So the first one, which is the first cost. So involves description and best estimates of the parameters, such as the first cost. That estimate will be given to you. You're not going to look for it, but in reality, you need to look for how much is that first cost, what other things need to be paid with it. For example, shipping, insurance, taxes, and so forth. All that will be inclusive on that. Other thing, estimated annual incomes. Note the word here, annual incomes, positive or negative, it's upward, positive. Why? This is an income, something will come to us. And it's what? Annually, per year, without identifying or without telling you when it's going to start and when it's going to finish, this per year. i.e. starting from year 1 till the end of that project and life of it. Expenses. Well, let me continue with that first. Revenue is part of the income. Revenue, it's an income. A profit, it's an income. But come to that expenses, which is downward. The expenses are downward. What parts of that expenses? Actually, that we have operating cost, maintenance cost, مصروفات. The word operating and maintenance cost, you will see it like this: operating and maintenance cost, or operating separately, maintenance separately. You need to add them together if they are in the same periods. So the expenses is something you need to pay. Last thing, salvage. What is that salvage? End of the life of that project or equipment or device or investment. You're going to, if you are going to sell that device which you paid at time 0, at that life, you are going to scrap it. You will sell it. In English, they call it salvage it. You're going to salvage it. بتحصل عليه مبلغ. That amount which will come to you called salvage value. And we saw one of the problem last lecture. We discussed that. And of course, all this needs an interest rate. Without interest rate, it will not work. We have different type of expenses. We'll see them, inshallah, once we come to another example as a practice later on. Giving a set of feasible alternatives. Feasible alternatives. What does feasibles mean? المتاحة, الحقيقية. So, for example, one of the calculation of one of the investment, he told you that you are going to invest this much of money, you need to pay yearly this much, and that will be your profit, and at the end, that what you're going to get as a salvage. That salvage is the prediction, not a real one. They call it a book value. Book value. Something in books. يعني بس بالدفتر. Something theoretical. Not a real or a market value. هذه السالفج. not a real or market value. Okay, what you're going to do, you're going to calculate the present world for it. If it's an investment, it means what you're looking for to increase your wealth. ما بتسوي business وتدري انك خسران. So to add them all together from the beginning, and if it is negative, the answer, if you got it negative, which means, what does it mean? It's not feasible. If it's negative, if it's an investment in a project and what you get is negative, it's infeasible. Feasible, if it's a positive, amount or positive summation of all of them. So giving a set of feasible alternatives. Engineering economy attempts to identify the best economic approach to a given problem. I'll give you another example. If you have, let's say, 10,000 BD and you want to buy a new car, what feasible things will you go for a new car? When I say the new car here, will you go for example, Range Rover, Mercedes-Benz, or whatever, BMW? Of course not. They are exceeding 10,000 and you don't want to take a loan. So you will not take it. Those type of cars, they are not feasible. They are not feasible. So the feasible thing, is to go 10,000 or less. To see those cars of 10,000 or less, those are the feasible alternatives you have. So mutually exclusive alternatives, this one type of economic projects. It means that we have another type, because it says here types of economic projects. One type is the mutually exclusive projects or alternatives. Read those. From a set of feasible alternatives, pick one and only one to execute. Only one project to be selected from that mutually exclusive alternatives. We have in chapter 5, chapter 6, and chapter 7. Those based on the mutually exclusive alternatives. To select one and only one. So from a set of feasible alternatives, pick one and only one to execute. Only one to execute. You cannot select more than one. If it's an investment of projects and all of them are negative, what are you going to do? Are you going to select any one of them? Of course not. Of course not. So what will happen? You will select or will search for other projects. But for the time being, you are going to do nothing. Do nothing. So do nothing is one of the alternatives. It's a hidden one with no calculation, with no nothing, zero investment, zero revenue, zero salvage, zero everything. How much you are going to gain? Nothing. This is the do nothing. Mutually exclusive alternatives again compete against each other. Competing against each other. But what is that second type of that economic projects? The first type, but we are going to see it in here, in chapter 5, then in chapter 6 and chapter 7, there are mutually exclusive alternatives. Independent projects. Independent projects do not compete. Do not compete. So what to do with that? Actually, we'll see this inshallah in chapter 12. just one problem will solve there, you'll see the whole idea, all the steps, how to solve for that independent project. What is that independent projects? Actually, what they are doing in there? Why they distinguish between those two? In match exclusive, you are going to select one and only one. But independent projects, where they do not compete from a set of feasible alternatives. Here we have a set of feasible alternatives. In match exclusive, we'll pick only one. But with the independent projects, select as many as can be funded in the current period. As many as can be funded in the current period. You have a budget. You have certain budget. You want to buy things, not one thing. Sorry. You want to buy things from whatever available. They are not competing each other. They are not competing each other. So, for example, you want to buy clothes with, say, shoes, suit, jacket, all that. They are not competing with each other. Each one of them is a feasible alternative for you. But out of those, see how many or how much of those can be funded, can be bought now with what you have in your pocket of that budget. That are independent projects. But if none of them within that budget, all of them exceeding the budget, what to do? Do nothing. Again, the do nothing is repeated for both of them. Do nothing. So the do nothing alternative should always be considered either for mature exclusive or for independent projects. In both of them, you are going to spend money either to invest in one project or to have a collection of alternatives. You're going to spend money. You don't want to lose your money. So do nothing is alternative. That alternative should always be considered. No new cost, no revenues or saving are generated by the do nothing alternatives. ما بتخسر شيء ولا بتحصل شيء من هاي الالترناتيف. This is one of the type of economic projects. Though you're not going to select anything, something not there. This type is a hidden type. No one will tell you about it, but you need to give a decision not to go for any project. Just say do nothing. We're not going to select anyone. Hope that is clear. Okay. Sadiq, send me a file now. I've replied to you. Send me a file. Examples of mutually exclusive projects. Like what? For example, best to select the best power generation engines from several engines. You want to select those engines from so many engines available. You're not going to select them all, just a few of them. Maybe you have 20 engines are feasible and can be worked with your equipment, but you are looking for 1 or 2 or 3 engines only. So you need to select the best power generation engine. Secondly, transportation goods between 2 rivers bank, ضفتين نهر, either by boats or through building a bridge. In 80s, before they construct the causeway between Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, they were using a boat for transportation. But nowadays, all of us who are using that causeway, it's non-profitable causeway, it's non-profitable, this is not a business, they are giving services. assessing alternatives. يعني بس كده قاعد نعطي الفكره لحد الحين، ما دشينا في الموضوع او how to do a calculation. Assessing alternatives. First of all, you need to pick the feasible alternatives. Feasible alternatives. So economic analysis and assessment. Look for the feasible alternatives. Say, for example, we found those two are feasible, so we need to calculate the P for them. Now, in this chapter, we are talking about present world and future world. So either to calculate the present world or to calculate the future world, if they are investment project. So what we're going to do, we are going to have those feasible of just a positive alternative will be feasible. Anything negative, exclude them directly. Now, if they are a mutually exclusive project, we'll pick the highest economical number. Positive will go for the highest positive. And negative will go with less negativity or the lowest one. i.e. always to go in that direction. The zero, always to go in that direction. We have negativity on this side. We'll select the less negativity. We have values in here. We'll go with the highest value, positive value. If we are having much exclusive set or project, we'll select one and only one. But if we're having independent set or independent projects, we'll go with as much as we can from those projects available within the budget, not to exceed the budget. The cash flows. Remember we said investment projects, it means that we are going to gain money from them. We want to increase our wealth. ضد investment استثمار. ما حد بدش استثمار هو خسر، يدري انه بيخسر كل بيزاته. That's what we call revenue projects. Say revenue, each alternative generates cost and revenues. For sure, there will be a cost and there will be a revenues. Out of those two, you will have positive present worth or positive annual worth or positive what you call future worth. Why? Because the idea or the concept of that investment is a revenue project, it's an investment project. The criteria here to select the alternative that maximizes the economic measure of merit, i.e. to go far from zero with the maximum toward the infinity. Where the maximum is, we are going to pick it, we are going to select it. Other type of projects, like what we have in the bridges, roads, so many things that we have just for services. Each alternative has only current and future costs. Some of them with little revenue, but that revenue will not be considered. Why? Because the cost is much higher than the revenues. That's why most of the services, 99% of the services, even if there is a revenue, تذكرة الدخول, a toll or whatever, will not be considered that much. So the present worth, the calculation at the end, present worth, the annual worth or future worth will be negative. That's why when selecting for services projects, go with select alternative that minimizes the economic measure of merit, which is a cost-based measure, i.e. with the minimum lowest negative, closer to zero. Any question before we continue? في أي سؤال؟ بنروح على the new section now. to see the calculation? Okay. Present worth analysis of equal life alternatives. Come on, it means we have an equal lives. I want to do the calculation here. Why to distinguish between them? Equal and unequal life. What does equal lives mean? If I ask you now, there will be a competition, for example, for one of the in sports. خلي أسهل شيء في الرياضة. Or let's say you are in university. There will be a competition in math between a student in university and a student in primary school. Who will win? مين بيفوز فيها دي؟ Normal student in university and normal student from intermediate primary school. Who will win?
Student at university.
Sure. Like Ibrahim, student at university. Is it fair to compete with student in primary school in something that he did not cover it or go through it? Is it fair?
No.
That's why the alternative, they are the same. If you want to compare between alternative that will last only for 5 years and other alternative will last for 25 years, it's not fair to compare between them. So we need to do something else that we'll see it in next section. In this section here, we're going to do the comparison or the selection between alternatives of equal lives. When we said equal lives, the life of it for the first alternative equal to the second alternative, equal to the third alternatives, equal to all that alternative available with us, feasible alternatives. This is the first thing to look for in life. If they are of equal lives and what you want to calculate, the present worth or a future worth. Present worth or the future worth. That's it. Present or future worth. Any other comparison later on that we're going to see it in chapter 6 or 7, it doesn't matter. It matters only in here, in a present world or a future world. We need to see the life. Are they of equal life or unequal lives? A process of obtaining the equivalent worth of future cash flows back to some points in time. We have the cash flows in year 1, year 2, year 3, different cash flows, different series, up to year, let's say 10, which is the life of that alternative. We need to bring them all to present time. But if we're working with future world, we need to send them, all of them, to the last year, at year N, or in our example, let's say 10. Find the present worth at a stated interest rate, which is given to us, which is usually, now we're going to see this much, equal to or greater than the organization established MAR. We're going to treat that MAR exactly like what we did in chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, for what? For I. The same way. Even we're not going to write it MAR, we're going to say directly I. In our standard notation, we're going to put that percentage, which is again I, which is equal to that minimum attractive rate of return, MAR. That's what we did in the last section in chapter 1. Minimum attractive rate of return is the minimum attractive rate of return and is higher than the rate expected from a bank or some safe investment. Present worth analysis of an equal life alternatives. We are continuing with section 2 now. Equal life alternatives. The easiest part in this chapter You don't have to do anything. Just compare directly between different projects and to select according to the founded present worth. Usually, the cash flows contains a mixture of positive and negative cash flows, up and down, like what we did in chapter here in last lecture. A mixture of cash flows, up and down. If they are up, it means the founded present worth for it is what? Here now. So that one, if we're going to bring it to time 0, present worth of it is upward. That one upward. What we have is here upward, upward, upward. So all of them will be upward, i.e. if they are positive, you're supposed to get a positive present worth for them. What we have in here, all of them are negative. So we're supposed to have a negative present worth for that. In here, positive. In that one, negative. Then we need to add them together to find the P total from all the cash flows available, upward and downward, to find the final present worth for that. It's very important not to let the calculator controls your answer. The compound, I'm repeating this because some of the student, you want me to announce names later on, I can't do it. بس أنا حتى لا نحن جحد, I'm not going to do that. In the calculator, if you put it positive and compound, it will give you a negative answer, which is not right. If it is positive, you're supposed to get it positive. If it is negative, you're supposed to get it negative. But the calculator will give you the equivalent, the other side of that. If you put it positive, it will give you a negative, which is not right. Make sure you understood this part of using a calculator. I'm talking about only the compound. The cash, no. Positive will give you positive. Negative will give you negative. Let's continue here now. So in calculation, present worth for positive cash flows at I will give us positive present worth, upward. Present worth for negative cash flows at I will give us negative present worth. So what to do with them? Just adding those two together. If the resultant المحصلة طلعت عنا بالpositive, we are going to put it as positive. If it's negative, we are going to put it as negative. Add the result since the equivalent cash flows occur at the same point in time. Now both of them are at time 0. We are going to do exactly the same if you want to find for the future work. To find everything to future for positive and to future for negative, then add them together, sum them. The main problem, present worth requires that the lives of all alternatives be equal. If they are not equal, we cannot do this directly. We need to do certain tricks, one step before finding the present worth. Now in this section, we'll concentrate and we'll work only with equal lives alternatives. In mutually exclusive alternatives, the following guidelines are applied to select one alternative. I'll go very fast now. One alternative, that's exactly what we did in chapter 2 and 3. It was only over one alternative, one calculation, one scenario. Calculate the present worth at that MAR given interest rate. If the present worth greater or equal to 0, the requested MAR is met. Requested MAR is met. or exceeded, and the alternative is financially viable. When to go for this? If our project or our alternative is an investment alternative, i.e. revenue projects or revenue alternative. If it is service alternative, no. For service alternative, it doesn't matter if it is negative. Here we are talking only about revenue alternatives. And by the way, later on, you are going to find numbers. Whatever number will be in here, what is this number? You need to interpret your answer. Interpret your answer to give me your decision as engineers now. Not only to calculate like financial people there or economists. No. You need to interpret your answer. Want to see this? It's fine. Then your decision, your comment, your feedback of that's what we call interpretation, i.e. translate that numbers into writings. Because at the end, I don't know how you got this as a manager now. Inshallah, after graduation, you will be involved in certain projects. Most of you need to do certain calculations economically and other type of feasibility study, and to give a decision and a written decision for the top management. What you're going to write in there? Someone will say, okay, I'm going to select this. Okay, fine. Selection based on what? That value? What does it mean? It's exceeded or it's greater than zero. Greater than zero. We don't want to see that some of the instructor or some of the managers, especially if they are from business college, if you are going to tell them about that, you will hesitate or this is okay, I'm confused whether this is greater than or less than. So give them in written. What is shown that written? The value that you found is greater than zero. Write it there, greater than zero. So the alternative is financially viable. Viable. Memorize this. If you're going to select it, write this. That if we are going to go for one alternative. What about if we have more than one? Two or more alternatives. Calculate the present worth of each alternative at mark. Each alternative, like what we did in here, you need to do exactly the same for each one of them. So, say for example, you have 3 problems. You can put them, the first one in here, the second one, third one. If they are going to fit in that column, do it. Standard, the cash flow diagram. Then standard notation, then an answer. After that, interpretation, i.e. to select between them. Which one you got to select, A, B, or C? Based on that calculation, that's what you did in here. Which one you drop? Which one? Greater than zero, the highest one between them. If the 3 are greater than zero, but one of them is in here. Say this A, C, B. So select alternative or select a project B greater than zero. The present worth greater than zero. So it's financially viable. Okay. Select alternative with the present worth value that is numerically largest, less negative or more positive. Less negative or more positive. It doesn't mean that, We're focused only on revenue projects. It can be a service project. If it is a service project, less negative. If it is a revenue project, more positive, indicating a lower present worth of cost, cash flows, or larger present worth of net cash flows of revenue minus the cost. Two or more alternatives. Now tell me, for each alternative, which one you are going to select. Between alternative 1 and alternative 2, which one you are going to select? I know the answer is there.
2.
Alternative 2. Okay. The second one here.
1.
Alternative 1. Between those two.
2.
2.
Alternative 2. Though it's very small, but it's far from that one, so we'll select it. Between those two.
1.
Alternative 1. Someone will say this is just a basic things. No, it's a very basic. But with the confusion later on, or with time limit, you're going to confuse which one to select very fast. تأكد دائما من الإشارة إن حاطين إشارات عشان يكون عندكم أسهل. Need you now guys to work on that by yourself. Plot cash flow diagram for each one of them. Then you need to write standard notation for each one of them. I know the answer is in the slides. We have the answers, but have them in front of you. Write them in front of you. Notice what we have in here. What we're supposed to find. Just to tell you that we are in chapter 5. Perform a present worth analysis. Present worth analysis. Okay, that's in chapter 5. We know that what is required from us is to find this. You need to identify what is required from you to write the requirements, to write it given. The requirements here is to find the present worth. The given, we'll see what is given to us now. So present worth analysis. Since it's a present worth analysis, I'm not going to solve it directly. I need to check one thing. Directly, I'll go for lives. For the different alternative, we have alternative 1 in here, 2, 3. Need to check this. If they are of equal lives, it means we are in section 5.2. i.e., we are going to solve it directly. We are going to solve it directly without bothering to change lives. Now, this is the easiest problem that we're going to see in the present worth analysis, because later on in in the next section, we're going to see something else with different lives. But here, they are of equal lives. Notice it says to find the present worth of equal service machines. Equal service machines. We can, without saying equal, of that service machine, it gives us the costs. Since they are service, so this is a cost. We have cost. Now, what is given to us? First, cost, operating cost, salvage. If you are going to plot a cash flow diagram, when we see that first cost, which year it will be that?
0.
At time 0. That we are going to pay now. You need to pay this now. 2,500. Even without telling, without putting that negativity, the word cost, it means this negative. The word cost, it means this negative. Same thing for those. Salvage, for sure, is positive. In life, for all of them, upward at time 5 for that salvage, 200. We have an operating cost. It says here annual. By the way, in every semester, we have a question from students. Doctor, is it at year 1? Is it at year 2? How do you know that is an annuity? Because of that. It says here annual operating, or OC, operating cost. Annual operating cost. It means whether if it's not identified in which year it's going to start, directly we are going to start from year 1 till the last year. Over 5 periods. Period 1, 2, 3, 4 till year 5. 900. So we have first cost at time 0, 900 annuity started from 1 to 5, and then the salvage value at the end period, last period at year 5. To write the standard notation, what we want to find, required from us here is to find the present worth. So the present worth will equal to that 2,500 at time 0. And what we want to find, the present worth for that alternative at time 0. So we'll keep it as it is, but don't forget it's downward, so negative 2,500. What else we have? We'll go for that. Minus 900. Why minus? Is downward. Standard notation. What we want to find? P. Giving what? Annuity. The interest is given to us 10%. This is how we're going to construct cash flow diagram. 10% over how long? 5 periods. Are we done? No, still we have that. It's upward plus 200. P giving what? This is in a future single payment, 10%, 5. This for the first one, for the electric alternative. For the first alternative. Second one, exactly do the same. We don't have geometric gradient here. We don't have shifted series. What we have directly. So let's construct cash flow diagram for each one of them. And remember, before what I told you, you don't have to show this. Not to waste time to draw all the cash flows for that annuity. Just do the first one and the last one and connect between them. Even here, you don't have to show all that. We know it's an annuity, so you can put equal to negative either negative 900 to make sure not to confuse later on when you take the numbers. And it's better for you to put a sign from the beginning. يعني تخلون الساين من هنا عشان لا تتخربطون بعدين يوم تاخذون ارقام من كاش فلو دايجرام. اللينث relatively negative 200, negative 900. For sure, this one is larger or longer than this. هني شوي مطولين هذه. Can just make it a little bit lower or shorter than that. يكون بس أكثر من هذه 900. I always to put it at the top. No need to write all that. Note the life. All of them of the same life. Equal lives. This is fine. So we can do the calculation like what we did for the first one. Present worth for the first one. Exactly do it for the second and for the third. Which one you're going to select? From the calculation, we know it's service. They are service alternatives. So service, for sure, we're going to have a negative present worth. Negative present worth. Which one you're going to select between those?
First one.
First one. Why first one?
Because less cost.
Because less cost. Thank you. We'll select the first one here. Electric generator, electric power generator. So the electric power machine is selected since the present worth of its cost is the lowest. Is the lowest. You don't have to write this. أي ما يحتاج نكتبهم. Since the present worth of its cost is the lowest. So we'll select this. That will give you 1 mark or 2 marks. Just writing this based on what calculation you are going to get, based on your calculation, even if they are wrong. حتى لو كان الكالكوليشن مالكم غلط، اللي سويته هني هاي بتحصل عليه من درجة إلى درجتين. Based on your calculation, not on the actual one. Because later on, your decision will be based on what you are going to get. If you were asked now to find the future worth, مطلوب منك انك تحسب the future worth. How to do it? شلون بتحسبون the future worth? Okay. Instead of finding, yes.
اللي عندنا
Sorry.
يعني بناخذ البريزنت وورث اللي عندنا بنطلع منها الفيوتشر.
That if you are going to use this, بنشوف why to do it in 2 steps. We can do it in 1 step like what we did for that present worth. If it is of 2 steps, fine, like what Lubna said, we're going to use that first to find the present worth at time 0, then to shift it to time. We're in here now. We found that present worth, then we went to shift it to time 5. From time 0 to time 5 to find that future worth. At the end, we don't need that. What's required from you is to find this. إذا بنستعمل هذه directly what you want to see or to say here, the future worth for electric, I'm going to use that numbers equal to negative 5787.52 to substitute the value. What you want to find F giving that P 10% 5. Or from the beginning, the future worth of the electric will equal to that 2,500 it cost at time 0. We need now to send it to time 5. Negative 2,500. F giving P, this is or, you do it in 1 step, 10% 5 plus that one. So this is not plus. Minus, talk about this now, 900 P will be F giving annuity 10% 5. Why? Because we want to shift that part, and instead of finding 1 to the left to find the present worth, no, we want to find 1 or at the same period with the last one, with the last cash flow. Plus the last one here, we have that 200 as it is. 200. Why? Because we want to find at time 5 and that 200 is at time 5. You can use this one to find that future worth, or you can do it in this form. Whatever is easier for you, do it. But don't forget that time is important. You can do it in 1 step, or it can be in 2 steps. Which one is easier for you, do it. That was for this section. for equal lives alternatives. Equal life alternatives. 5, 5, 5. All of them are of the same life. Now, what about if they are of unequal lives? Unequal lives for alternatives with unequal lives. Unequal lives. So the present worth of the alternative must be compared over the same number of years. It's not logic. What we have for the life of that equipment or that investment, it's only 5 years, and the other investment is only 6 years. What to do? One 5 years and the other one 6 years. We cannot compare between them. According to what says here, they're supposed to be of equal lives, but actually, in reality, they are not equal. So we need to do something. Present worth of alternative must be compared over the same number of lives or years. That's called equal service requirement. And here, I need you to remember this. Equal service. What does equal service means? Equal service, i.e. to have them of equal number of years, equal life. To bring them, to make them of equal lives. So if present worth is to be applied, there are two approaches to the unequal life situation. So in this section, we're going to go through two different situations now to make them equally. How to make them equally? We cannot do it directly. That's exactly what you did in primary or intermediate school. If I ask you to, for example, to add this 1/5 plus 1/6, this will equal to what? How to add it? What you need to do?
نوحد المقامات كنا.
توحيد المقامات. Okay, how we are going to do it? Tell me, Ibrahim.
كنا أضرب 6 في 1 و5 في 1 كده فوق تحت.
شلون تضرب 6 في 1؟ هاي تضرب هذه في ذي، تضرب هاي في ذي، تضرب ذي اثنين في بعض.
ايه كنا كذي.
يعني بيصير 6 على 30 زائد 5 على 30. رايت؟ وحدنا المقامات الحين. بيطلع 11 على 30. Can you simplify it more? فاهم؟
ما كنا عامل مشترك ما بينهم، رقم عامل مشترك هنا.
Can we simplify it? نقدر نختصر أكثر؟
No.
No, we cannot. So that 30 is the LCM. That's what we call here least common multiple. Least common multiple. That's the first type. To make them or to make the two alternatives equal. Theoretically. To make the two alternatives equal theoretically. Just to do the calculation. So what to do? We need to repeat. Sorry. We need to repeat the first one 6 times. We need to repeat the second one, which is at year 6 or life of it 6 years, 5 times. In life, it's over 30 years. That the LCM. That the LCM. So for the first one of 5 years, life of it 5 years. We need to repeat how many times? 6 times. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 0 to 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. We're going to have 6 cycles. 6 cycles. I.e. to repeat the cash flows of one cycle again, 6 times according to that number. That's the easiest way to get the idea of that LCM. But for the second one, no, we need to repeat it 5 times. We need to repeat it 5 times. The first one, least common multiple. The second type, planning horizon approach. Planning horizon approach. We'll come to that. This is the study period. This is a study period. So either to see it in horizon approach or study period. You're going to hear those two together or in different timing or meaning the same for both. Planning horizon or study approach or study period. What do we have in there? So for example, you have different projects of different lives. One, let's say 5 years, other one 7 years, third one 9 years. If the study you have it here over is given to you over 7 years. So for this one here, you don't have to do anything. Just find directly the present world. For that one, no, we need to add. We'll see what to add in here. For this one here, we need to remove that part just to stop at year 7. We'll see that inshallah once we come to that part. Now let's concentrate on the first one, which is the LCM. To see what is that LCM, how to work with it, if there is any trick or not. So 2 approaches. LCM, evaluate the alternatives over the lowest common multiple. The lowest common multiple of lives, for example, 4 and 6. Again, let's do like exactly what we did in there. How he come with that. 4 and 6, 1 over 4 plus 1 over 6. Let's find the least common multiple, exactly like what we did earlier in the previous example. يلا شباب. يخلص الوقت guys. ما بتجاوبون برجعكم ابتدائي مرة ثانية. Yes, go ahead.
4 times 3.
Sorry. Sorry?
Time 3 and time 2.
ما بسأل شلون سويتي ذي الشيء. Like what we did earlier, we just were going to multiply this by this and this by this and that one later on. So it will be 6 over plus that one 4 over, multiply those 24. From those, can we simplify it more? Yes, we can by dividing by 2. So we have 3 divided by 2, 2, 12, 12. So we're going to have 3 over 12 plus 2 over 12. It means the LCM here will equal to LCM, like what we are having here, equal to 12. So we have 4 and 6. 4 and 6. See this? For the 4 and this 4 is 6. How many times we're going to repeat that cycle? 3 times. How many times we are going to repeat the cycle of 6 years? 2 times. Zero, 4, 8, 12. 0, 6, 12. Now they are of equal lives. Theoretically, of equal lives. But we've repeated the cycle 3 times. We've repeated the cycle here, and we repeat that cycle. In here, 1, 2, according to what we got in here, which is that one. So did the LCM, and here, number of cycles. the easiest way to tell how many cycles we are going to have. Hope that's clear, Shabab. Hope that is clear.
clear دكتور.
Planning horizon approach, which is the steady period, compare the alternative using a steady period of length and years, regardless of life for each alternative. We are not going to do any calculation. It will be given to us, okay, do a steady period or do a study at, for example, 8 years, 12 years, 19 years, 20 years, whatever number of years. If we are going to have those two, for example, 4 and 6, we're not going to do any LCM for it. If it says 7 years, it means we need to add 3 years for this, i.e. partial 1 cycle and partial of the second cycle. And that one, partial just 1 year of the second cycle, just to make a steady period of 7 years. Again, we'll come to this, inshallah, once we are done with the LCM. So with that, still a planning horizon or a steady period, which does not necessarily take into consideration the useful life of the alternatives. I'm going to stop in here. We'll leave this for next lecture, inshallah. We'll see examples of that LCM, how it works, what we're supposed to do with it. We'll leave it for next lecture. Then we'll continue with capitalized costs